Morning, everybody. Well, it's an unusually early spring day here in the Midwest. It's last week we were in the 30s and night we dipped down to the 20s. Today we are going to be 69. So I'm out here working without a jacket on. I've got the garage doors open. I'm doing a little spring cleaning. You'll see a little video montage of that. I'm going to put it in another video. But anyway, some parts came in that I needed, and so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with these parts. One of the problems I have with this Rikon saw. Now, I bought this Rikon saw used off of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace about, I don't know, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, something like that. I needed a bandsaw. These got really expensive. They were like low 300s when I first started looking at them, and then the pandemic hit and these things jumped up. This is the older model of the 10-inch, so this is a 10305. And this is not the deluxe version, this is the regular base version, and it works great. The guy I bought it from some guy downtown in Chicago. He lived in like a two-flat kind of place, and I met him on the corner, and he carried this down the stairs of his two-flat, and I bought it from him. And I got it home, and you know, he had a couple extra blades with it, he had the instruction manual, he had basically everything. And I asked him how long he's used it, and he said, well, I've used it for a couple projects, but I didn't have much luck with it. And I don't know what that meant. So I got home, and right away, I realized why he had problems with it. The wheels were so out of alignment that, you know, every time you turned it on, it would throw a blade, regardless of how you adjusted the guides, regardless of where the blade position was on the wheels. And so I went through and readjusted everything. And it, you know, it works like a Dickinson orphan now. Works great. I've got a half inch, 3/8, half inch resaw blade in here now, which I bought this blade. This is an Olson blade, and it works great. I've used it recently when I was making the drawers for this, and I resawed some some hard maple. Resawed that 3/4 inch hard maple, split it in half. And that's what I make the side of these drawers with here. Now it's kind of hard to see on camera. I'll tilt it forward. These side drawers, so they came out really nice. And I just literally split it. And this is before I even bought a planer. So I just basically split it, resawed it, and then just gave it a sanding, and I used them as drawer sides. They worked really well. But one of the things I discovered when I was doing that resaw, I was doing some test pieces just to make sure the resaw was going to track straight. And I noticed something interesting. This fence is not square. I'm not talking about square this way, which they can drift and things of that nature. I'm talking about square this way. And it's almost impossible to see on the camera. And I'm not sure if the guy who had this did this issue or not. But the fence actually bows. It's got a crown in it. So I can see light escaping on the top and a little bit of light escaping on the bottom. And I can go to the other side and it's exactly the same. And you can see here, it's bowed here. The only way I can get this fence not to bow is to completely loosen it. So it's completely moving. And at that point, it's still bowed. So I think this guy over-tightened this so badly, he warped this. Now, I'm not sure if this fence has an inherent problem or not. But for me, it's useless. I don't think it can be fixed. Relatively easy. And I think I found a better solution. So yesterday, I got this box from Rikon. I bought this $49. I think I ordered it through Woodcraft, and it ships directly from Rikon. It is the Deluxe Fence upgrade for this saw. So if you buy the deluxe version of this saw, it comes with this fence. But you can actually buy this fence separately. So if you've got the older model, you can upgrade it to the deluxe fence. This fence is much more stout, much more rigid, got a better rail system. And I'm hoping this is going to fix my problem. And then when I go to do more resawing, which I want to, one of the reasons I bought a resaw blade for this is I hope this helps keep the boards completely true. Now this isn't, they also sell a extended fence or a resaw fence, which is really, really tall. I'm hoping I don't need that. And I can always build an auxiliary fence that slips over this new fence to give me that height to support that wood. But for now, I'm just gonna take this apart, or take this out of the box, unbox it, and see what's involved with upgrading this to the deluxe table saw, or sorry, the deluxe saw fence. I think the rails changed on this too. So I think with this new fence, I think it has a new rail system. So we're gonna see that. I know just very little about it. I just know it's a deluxe upgrade, and I don't know what. All I can see is pictures. So we're gonna find out together. Okay, here we go. Go ahead and slit the tape. People have asked me why I use these cheap Harbor Freight cutters. One, they're almost free. They're like, I don't know, quarter, 50 cents at Harbor Freight. And a lot of times there's free coupons for them. And I just, every time I go, they're always on a checkout. And I buy them because if I lose one, I don't care. I have regular, you know, cutter knives and stuff of that nature, which I use for most things that are more heavy duty. But for this stuff, this is all I need. Okay, there we go. Oops, that way. So let's see what we got here. So it comes with an instruction sheet. And this is not just a part off the Deluxe Saw. This is actually an upgrade kit specifically for this saw to upgrade the fence to make it like the deluxe version. So this is a specific upgrade kit for this saw. So I'm not just trying to wedge parts from a newer model on an older model. This is made by Rikon, warranted by Rikon. It's made for this exact purpose. About 49 bucks. You can order it through Woodcraft. I think you can order it through some other sites. Surprisingly enough, you can't order it directly through Rikon that I could find. So, but Woodcraft is who I ordered it from. There were some other dealers, some other vendors online, but I wasn't familiar with them, and I didn't want my credit card to part ways with me. So I decided to order it through a known vendor so I wouldn't get shafted. Now, when I ordered this, there was a 3-week delay in getting it. It was back ordered, so it took about 3 weeks to get this direct from the manufacturer. Okay, so what do we got here? We got the new fence. And you can see it's got measurements in it. It's much more stout. It's instead of it being this thin sheet metal, when I'll compare the two, instead of it being thin sheet metal, it's much more stout. It's a much more extruded piece. Looks like another part of the fence. Okay, that's interesting. A much more beefy lockdown. Oh, you know what? That's probably a rail system, and that's the fence. Okay, that's probably what that is. So let's take a look at this. Get some of these parts out of the bags. Huh, interesting. So this is the new latch down mechanism, much beefier, much more, look how much thicker that is compared to this. So let me pull this other fence off really quick. Let's open these up. Everybody into the pool. So this piece, which I thought was the fence, this is actually the new front rail. Look how thick that metal is. This is the new fence. Significantly thicker when you compare it to how thin the previous one was. Look at the degree of the thickness and gauge. I mean, it's kind of night and day. It's extruded, completely different design and rail system. I think this is going to be great. So on the old one, the locking system was really just this part tightening. This part right here, when you tighten this down, this kind of just squeezed and basically squeezed this thing together. And I think that's what made this bend and bow. And you can see the degree of bow here on this end. As this part squeezed together, it just basically blew this out. I'm sure I could come in here and try to hammer this and hammer it straight, but this is such, I mean, this whole piece is lighter than this piece. I mean, as far as even just weight, I mean, this is completely different. So that's your whole locking mechanism. It's just basically a screw that just squeezes this together. As opposed to this locking mechanism, this is a completely different beast. It's look how thick the metal is there. So it's much more stout than anything you're going to see anywhere else. Okay, so I'm going to actually read the instructions, or RTFM for those so inclined. And we're going to see what has to go on here. I think it's all pretty straightforward. And so I'm going to get to it. I'm going to go ahead and stop talking and start working on it. And I'll go ahead. Okay, so it's assembled. What you saw me doing here was there's an adjustment here on the front, and I'll zoom in here in the video here. But you'll see there's 2 plastic adjustment screws here. this adjusts the tension on this. This thing was so tight from the factory that it was just like, I don't know, like maybe a gorilla to close. And I've actually found, I could feel it bending the front rail. So, and I'm actually going to loosen it a little bit more because there's no time where I'm going to need something that crazy tight. There we go, that's much better. So that's perfectly secure. It's not moving anywhere. Very nice and secure. There's adjustments here on the side, and turn it a little bit more so you can see it. There you go. There's adjustments here on the side so you can adjust the degree of how much of this fence you want to move forward and stuff. I'm just going to leave it kind of lined up here with the back. I think that's going to be completely fine. Now there are two more adjustment screws here and here, and I think this is what's going to allow me to level the fence. The other one actually had no mechanism of leveling, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down and see where we're at. Yeah, so it's tilted slightly that way. So I'm going to have to either lower this side or bring this side up. Now this side appears to be all the way down, so we're going to bring that side up. So I'm going to come in here, loosen this back up. I'm going to go ahead and turn these clockwise, and this is a 3mm adjustment. So they don't supply the Allen wrench, but I've got Allen wrenches, so that's not a big deal. Tighten it back up. So you want to do this, you want to loosen it, make the adjustment, then retighten or relock it, and then check your adjustment. Pretty close there, so I think I need to back it off just a hair. I'm going to go a quarter turn on each of these. Okay, that looks pretty square. Check it over here. It's pretty square all the way across. I'm going to make a couple more adjustments here, and I just want to, I've noticed, and you can't see this, let me turn the saw and it'll make more sense. If I lock this down, one of the things I'm noticing is that the edge of the fence is coming up here on this side, and I kind of want to leave this fence flat against the table. I think I need to adjust these up even more so that it's tilting this way. Right now it's pretty far down in the lock, and that also could be why this lock is so stiff. So I'm going to just play around with the adjustments a few minutes and see where we go. Okay, and there we go. It's perfectly adjusted. It's completely square. I have it locked down. And you'll see there's a gap under here, and that's normal. And I'll zoom in here on the video. But there's actually a little pad underneath here that it rides on, like a piece of plastic. So there's always going to be a little gap. It's not going to sit completely flat on the table, but this is like, I don't know. I'm going to say this is 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch, something maybe a little bigger, 1/16 of an inch. But that's going to allow you to adjust this and get this all in line. Anyway, neat upgrade. I'm going to try cutting some wood here, and we'll see how it works. Here you can see how square it is now. Some of the features of this is I have this adjusted, and this can slide back a little bit for adjustment, just enough basically for blade width. You can't go back too far because these holes only have so much adjustment in them. But one of the things you can do, if you can see here, if I loosen this up and I slide it right up against the blade and I lock it down, I'm right on that 0 mark. So that's how, this is basically your reference edge for referencing how far away from the blade you are. So you're measuring from this edge, not this edge, when you're looking at this. I find these give me a relative position, but it's better for me to mark the center of a piece of wood to figure out where I'm going to cut it. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, there we go. Obviously, this is going to leave saw marks. This blade is a resaw blade. It's not a smooth blade. It does what it's supposed to do perfectly. It cuts these boards in half, and it works really well. Now, before I would now have to go through and sand all these and try to get them smooth. But now, even if I'm off a little variance in the width, I didn't get my line exactly right, it doesn't matter, because now I'm just going to run these through the planer and get these to the exact same size, and I could use these for something. They might be dividers, they could be drawer sides, they could be anything. What I really want this for, not only for cutting out weird shapes, is why I use the saw. This doesn't have a huge capacity, but I want to start buying some rough cut lumber, some reclaimed stuff, and being able to resaw it into smaller pieces, so I'm not building drawer carcasses that are, 3/4 of an inch wide or even 1/2 inch wide. This is, probably, I don't know, less than 3/8 now. But that kind of size is more applicable for doing drawer sides and inserts and things of that nature. Also, there's just times where you don't need stock that thick for things. It's just a waste of wood. I mean, if I plane this down, I could side glue these together, kind of get matching grain, have some neat patterns. And obviously I would do this with longer, wider pieces, and I can make panels out of this. In that case, I'd probably mill this down so they're, 1/4 of an inch or something of that nature. But this way I can kind of cut these boards up and get some really nice pieces and use for all kinds of things. So while people concentrate on even this size, mostly these size saws for doing, scroll work or cutting out weird shapes, which they excel at, especially with a thinner blade. And I use this all the time for cutting just regular shapes out, even with this thick blade in it. And I've got thinner blades too. But, for resaw, for doing small resaw, this thing works pretty well. I forget what the actual cut depth on this is. I'm not sure what this model is specifically rated for. And right now, as it sits now, I can cut about 3.5 inches. If I came in here and let this move up all the way, so that's at its top position. So if I come down from the bottom of the guide, this is about 4 3/4. So as it sits, I can only resaw boards that are about 4 3/4. But I'm generally not going to resaw things bigger than that. If I needed to cut pieces down that I was going to edge glue, then I would probably take those longer, wider boards and cut them down to 4.5 or something like that. And then I would resaw them, and then I would glue them together to start building my panel. The narrower a board is, the less tendency to cup and warp. The wider a board is, the more tendency it has to cup and warp. So if you can make your panels out of some smaller pieces, they're going to stay a little bit more stable, I believe. That's what everyone's always said, is that narrower boards don't warp as much as longer boards. There's just not as much surface area. The other thing too is when you're cutting down stuff this size, and this really isn't a tutorial on resawing, but one of the things is you have to, if your wood's pretty green and you're still having to let it dry, you just expose a lot of internal surface that could still be wetter than the outside surface. So as that dries, this board's going to want to start to twist and warp. It's going to start to look like a 2x4 from Lowe's. You should be letting your wood dry out completely before you're resawing it and exposing that much. Now this is all select pine I got from the big box store. This stuff is bone dry. There's not a hint of, this is just, the only moisture in here is probably ambient. So I'm not too worried about this warping. And this is just pine. I don't know what I'm going to use this for. This will probably be utility drawers or separators, and maybe I'll put some inserts in my drill press drawer. But anyway, the whole point of this video was just to show you that this upgrade is available for the for the Rikon 10305 saw, to kind of not make it quite a deluxe model, because the deluxe model has, toolless bearing guides and things of that nature. This one doesn't, but I'm sure you could probably order all the parts and do that if you wanted to. But for me, it was really about ordering this much beefier fence. Also, you'll see this fence has it's got a T-track in it, so I can put stops and guides on it. The old one, let me grab the old one. The old fence in comparison had none of that. There was no mechanism for attaching anything. This being corrugated here also helps provide a less friction on the sliding the wood through, so it's a smoother surface. It's just a better overall piece. I can understand why they decided to go to this new design on the Deluxe model. Way better fence. Like I said, they do make a rip fence, which I think it stands about 4 inches tall. But I think, given the fact I've got this T-track here, I think I can build an extension that sits on top that I can slide in when I want to support it for longer woods. That being said, I've only got about 4.5 inches of resaw. So I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. I'm not resawing 12-inch pieces or something where I need a lot of back support, so I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you got something from it, especially if you own one of these saws and you can see what you can do with it. If you like this video, give me a like. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll see when our next videos are coming out. Lots of content coming, so make sure you hit that subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks a lot. Get out there in the garage and do something. Bye.